Hi, good evening.
Yes, good
Can you
evening.
hear me?
Yes,
Perfect. So, hi everyone. Welcome to all the attendees here. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Pinky Daga. I'm CEO for Thrive Art and Soul. Today I have with me Dr. Amit Goswami. Welcome, Dr. Goswami.
hi Pinky, good to be with you.
We are so honored to have such an illustrious guest today. For those of you who are listening to Dr. Goswami for the first time, first let me introduce him. Dr. Goswami is a theoretical physicist, quantum physicist. He has co authored the book Quantum Spirituality. He's appeared in the movie What the Bleep Do We Know? And he has been regarded as a great expert in the world of quantum physics for many years, even before the word became mainstream. His knowledge is very thorough and very deep. He is a very enlightening speaker, and I myself look forward to hearing all the great pearls of wisdom that he will share. I know that he has worked on and developed theories of reincarnation with quantum physics. He's developed a lot of views on consciousness, how that works with education, and basically everything to do with the world of quantum physics, which is sometimes such a strange world for the rest of us normal beings to fathom. So I look forward to hearing your views today, Dr. Goswami. Welcome. We are honored to have you.
Glad to be here, as I said, and I will be very happy to share all that I know about
Yes.
quantum physics.
I don't think an hour is long enough for that, Dr. Goswami, but at least if you can give us the highlights, we'll be grateful.
Okay, so shall we start with the what quantum physics is about?
Yeah. So why don't we go with that? Why don't you give us a basic definition of what is quantum physics? What is this thing that everyone's talking about all of a sudden?
Okay, so the physics started pretty innocuously, a big event in the world of physics, but nothing much for the outside world. It was discovered that not only matter is made out of these little particles of,
Just 1 second, Dr. Goswami. Is there any way you have of increasing your volume a little bit?
okay, maybe I can come closer. Is
Yeah.
that
And if you can speak up and come a bit closer, yeah.
okay? So, in the world of quantum physics, this was a big discovery that not only matter consists of elementary particles, building blocks, but energy also consists of these little building blocks, elementary particles. So, but the event became quite puzzling when Einstein, great physicist already at that time, came up with the idea that, but we know that energy like radiant energy, light, is a wave. How can it be a particle? Uh,
Right.
if the distinction is not clear to the listener, please, you have seen a wave, right? The water wave, and see how it spreads. It's the test lines are everywhere. Waves can be at many more than one place at a time. But look at when we throw a cricket ball, it always describes a trajectory. The ball is only at one place at a given time.
Mm.
So this is a big difference. How can the same thing spread and also be at one time and
Mm.
be the same thing? So this is what started to puzzle people, and maybe something is wrong with the way that we think of the world. So far, we have always believed that the world consists of very deterministic machine-like world in which matter moves in space and time and predictable, deterministic, we used to say, and that's Newtonian physics.
Right.
The physics that Newton developed in 17th century. And this is 20th century. So 300 years, that physics has not changed. But now that physics underwent a real change because quantum physics, as was formulated when the mathematics was properly discovered, then all hell broke out immediately because the waves are found to be waves of possibility. The reason that they can also be particle is that they are never particle in space and time. They are particle inside of space and time. But outside of the space and time, they live in a domain. This is called domain of potentiality. In this domain, in their original habitat, they are like waves. So that solved the dilemma. But science by that time has become a total believer in one domain of reality. Nothing like the spiritual idea of there is consciousness beyond this domain. And now we are back to that. Is the domain outside, domain of potentiality, consciousness? So this is where I came in, and this took another years, like 40 years.
Yeah.
The solution was fine. More than 40 years, 50 years before the solution was fine. But the solution I did find, which is that yes, it is consciousness and it is the ground of being, just as our ancient rishis declared 7,000 years ago. And it is all that, Sat, Chit, Ananda, like we are taught in India. Sat existence, Chit is awareness, both subject and object. And Ananda is joy that comes from the expanded consciousness we are entitled to. Not the ego consciousness, but the consciousness beyond that.
Right.
Why people meditate, why people want to be happy, because when we are happy, we have expanded consciousness.
Right. Yes. So tell me, in more layman's terms, how do quantum physics and consciousness really fit in? What's the theory?
So the theory is just that the theory is that objects are potentialities of consciousness to choose. When consciousness chooses, consciousness splits into subject and looking at objects.
Okay.
Subject identifies with the brain, that is the observer's brain. So we, the observer, is how this oneness of consciousness, this Brahman as is called in Sanskrit, how that descends into the world. In very popular terms, God cannot do without us. Comes to the world through us.
Right. Right. And so what is transformation then?
Transformation is a very interesting concept. I mean, it is a fact, as you know very well, ordinary people, including us, most often, we are in a rather contracted state of consciousness that we call ego. Some people call it very me-centered ego because they feel it extremely contracted. But people usually feel the ego as a fairly contracted state, which is only concerned about me, this body, this mind, this Amit, not about you. But then once in a while, we get into this expansion. We call those states of love, states of being good, states of wholeness. But whatever you may call it, states of enlightenment, those are the states in which we feel that we can include other people. We can include, I can include you, I can love you, and that feels great because you feel happy, I feel happy. So this then is the idea. How can we spend longer and longer time in that expanded state of consciousness?
Yes. That was actually going to be my next question.
Yes.
Yeah. Is it necessary that we always have to stay in a contracted state of consciousness? Isn't it in our hands that we can?
It's not necessary.
Yeah.
Contracted states, of course, states of mundane attention. Consciousness in a natural way becomes contracted. That's okay. Nobody expects to be expanded when you go to the bathroom. But indeed, other times, we have every prerogative to be expanded. For example, we eat, you can eat gobble, 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 but if you eat with a friend, slowly, friendly conversation, as the eating goes on, you'll find that you also are having an expanded consciousness. Your mind is getting softer. You can include, you ask more. These are experiences that gives us the impetus to live, makes life worth living. We look forward to these events with enjoying with friends, and same thing goes for relationships with love and all this stuff, right?
Right, right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
So what are the ways in which we can keep our consciousness expanded? What are the different methods? How do we do it? How do we stay there?
this is the $1 million question, of course, because this is the one for which we need education, for which you need some practices, and of course, spiritual traditions, religions, they have traditionally taught us some of this. And
Right.
the description is summarized in just that one word, which is quite well known to your listeners, I'm sure. It's called meditation.
Of course. Yeah.
But in science, we distinguish a lot. We differentiate between, well, there are many forms of meditation, and one form is called concentration. We focus the mind. Another form is called we relax the mind,
Right.
concentration and relaxation.
Right.
So then I discovered, while looking at the theory of creativity with quantum physics, that the transformation is actually a production of a new you. You have a way you operate in the world, which is in a producing a very contracted consciousness that you call the ego, your me,
Mm-hmm.
and that's all fine. Your brain cooperates, and that's the way sort of the brain is built. You
Mm-hmm.
cannot not do otherwise. You need an ego to carry out your functions in the world.
Right. Right.
But then, of course, contraction also excludes others, which is not so good. You forget your origin in oneness, that you and other are actually not so different, not so separate. And you need relationship. Relationship, at least you want relationships to be inclusive. If you are too much into yourself, people will say, look at Amit is so selfish. I don't want his company. He's only thinks of me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So this is why we want to expand.
Mm.
And the process is very simple, actually, because we already have those meditative techniques. If we combine them, I call it a do.
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 Right.
Relax
Okay.
and concentrate. Relax and concentrate. Concentrate on what? Concentrate on the questions of happiness, questions of love. How can I love someone? How can I be fair to someone? How can I have this relationship based on truth?
Mm.
So these are questions of transformation. This
Mm.
is well-known part of the spiritual traditions, especially Hinduism is a very developed, it has 7,000 years to grow.
Yeah.
So very developed religion, and it has many practices. So all these practices are not new. What is new is that quantum physics enables us to put them together, gives a scientific backup, and tells you why the practices work.
Right.
Why is it that if we do it, we fall into a state which is expansion, state of expansion, unlimited expansion, in fact.
Mm-hmm.
The ancient people call it Atman, we call it quantum self. Maybe we use a little bit of scientific word to remind people, look, we have an explanation now,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
So this is the goal of transformation, to spend more and more time, not only in the ego, but also with the quantum self. We are both. Our brain has both capacities.
Mm.
Brain can be taken to this quantum self, and people have measured now that yes, there are these states when the brain becomes more holistic. It's active everywhere. And
Mm.
there are states where the brain is localized in just one place
Mm.
while doing a task.
Right.
So not only we have a good theory, quantum physics of consciousness, but we also have neuroscience of consciousness, which is measuring what quantum physics is predicting.
Right. And can you tell us some of the famous studies that the neuroscientists have done to measure, and what are the results that have been found?
Yes, I won't name the neuroscientists because usually they're done with big groups.
Mm.
But no, one of them was done by a friend of mine, so I'll mention his name,
Mm.
a Mexican neurophysiologist whose name is Jacobo. That's a Mexican version of Jacob.
Mm.
So this guy uh, did an experiment which is just beautifully illustrates the power of the quantum.
Mm.
Quantum physics, it's very special. I mean, the states you get in quantum physics is sometimes really novel and unexpected. Some
Mm.
of people know because we have some experiences with it. One state is called non-local.
Okay.
Now, this non-locality is a very interesting concept because it's now scientific, defined scientifically. Scientifically, it's defined as communication with signal. When you and I become correlated, we meditate together, what happens is that we can share our thoughts. We can share our brains. So this Greenberg was interested, if we are sharing our brains, then that should be measurable. If there is some excitement going on
Mhm.
my brain, like seeing a light flash, and
Right.
seeing a light flash, you are sitting at a distance in a
Yes.
page where no signal can be reached to you.
Yeah.
Can I still communicate with you? Is my brain waves
Right.
become by
Yeah.
your brain?
Huh. Right.
And he measured it, and we found that yes, electrical activity from one brain can be transferred to another brain without any electrical communication.
Right. And how did he measure it?
So yeah, it's the EEG. It's the well-known apparatus, electroencephalogram machine, which use it to brain measure.
And did he measure like people into different locations?
Well, you just hook the scalp up with electrodes,
Right.
simple as that. And then the two people meditate together. One is sitting in this in iron cage, sky,
Mhm. Okay.
because electromagnetic field cannot go through the iron walls.
Okay.
Like a motor car is a good example of an iron cage.
Huh.
Don't have a cage like animal
Right.
cage.
Right.
It's just a room with impervious, electromagnetically impervious
Right.
walls. One person is meditating there and you're meditating here, and both brains are connected to individual electroencephalogram machines.
Right.
You are shown light flashes, your friend says nothing, and still your brain reciprocates with a huge commotion, which is
Mm.
picked up by your brainwave measurement machine.
Mm.
How come the other brainwave measurement machine is also excited and measures this huge potential?
Yeah.
This is a huge mystery until we realize that quantum communication does not require signals. It's
Mm.
less communication because meditation has made you and your friend into one. It's not a mystical dream.
Right.
It's not somebody saying, hey, look, we are one. And we don't have to believe it because we never experienced oh, we are one. But now believe it because it's.
Yeah. You're one.
So this, yeah, go ahead.
No, sorry. So I was just a thought came into my head. I'm wondering, in the future, do you see telepathic communication becoming a regular mode of communication as more and more people understand how to connect on the quantum field?
Well, you know, the telepathy is, of course,
Yeah.
experimented upon even longer than these quantum transfer potential experiments, and it is quite well known, established. What we have learned is interesting. Yes, people do have some telepathic capacity.
Mm.
And indeed, if we have expanded consciousness,
Mm.
then we should be able to have more telepathic communication with others in a effortless way. But one thing about quantum communication, and good thing too, because if you have telepathic ability, and let's say we're open to telepathic communication, then imagine how many more people that are calling you on telepathic, no
Yeah.
lines, using no lines at all. And that would be a little bit of a disaster, right? Too
Mm.
much.
Too much. Yeah.
So, of course, it happens only if you correlate with another person.
Mm.
And of course, there are cases like mother and child or twin brothers.
Mm.
they are more or less correlated much of the time. Whenever their consciousness is expanded, they're correlated.
Hmm.
So they communicate much more naturally in a telepathic way.
Right, right.
People, can they communicate in a telepathic way? If there is a need, I think they can. And
Hmm.
there is some evidence that one person is sick, the other person will know
Hmm.
that a response is needed.
Right.
Kind of thing is not uncommon to all people's experience.
Yeah.
But remember that first thing, this is why I opened a school, School of Transformative Education in Jaipur.
Hmm.
What we teach is that, look, how to expand your consciousness. And we do say that this is one of the, what Patanjali used to call siddhi.
Right.
One of the siddhis you get is this non-local ability. You can heal others by the same token. Somebody needs you. You can comfort both locally and non-locally.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And
So,
that's a ritual you go through, and that ritual is necessary. Otherwise, as I said, you'd be bombarded with.
right. No, yeah, I understand where you're coming from. Yeah, it'd be like too many cross signals in the brain, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me, how do we bring about this understanding, this quantum theory understanding to education? What is the education of consciousness?
Yes. So look at how education used to be.
Yeah.
Uh, now people in India know this much better because people read Indian history. One of
Hmm.
the things we take great pride of are names of our great universities like Takshila and Nalanda.
Hmm.
What was the difference in the teaching that Takshila or Nalanda offered? That students from all over the world, well, the world was kind of small at that time.
Right.
Foreigners were not here, but people came from China, people came from Greece, a few places. And why did they come from so many other countries? And of course, from India, the cream of the crop, because the teaching was very special. It was called Gurukula style.
Right.
People learn from a teacher who has uh, wisdom, kind of transform, not
Right.
maybe all the way. I don't say, for example, I'm transformed all the way.
No, but yeah.
But on the other hand, a certain amount of transformation is necessary before you are a teacher.
Hmm.
Otherwise, how are you going to teach transformation? So then what happens is that people gather around you, and that teaching is a transmission. It's not just teaching with words. It's also teaching by inspiration, expanded state of consciousness in which the absorption of knowledge works much better. So we teach by both proximity. We have 10 days of proximity every year. But other than that, we teach on the internet. So you might ask, well, is that as good as proximity? To my surprise, I now give regular webinars and teach like we are doing now.
Mhm.
And my experience surprised me because once the correlation, this friendly non-locality is established between teacher and the student, the distance doesn't matter. The fact that you are using internet to connect does not matter. All it matters is that you are intending to have a relationship. And then it is very powerful. It is sometimes even more powerful than proximity. The reason is that you are focused better. The only disadvantage is that, of course, you cannot do exercises in a very natural way. And of course, transformation requires exercises as well.
Mhm.
But the way we manage that is that we do a lot of exercises during the 10 days. And at other times, I go through the instructions while students follow it, but I don't necessarily see them in the proper posture. They don't necessarily see me, although they can if they want. And in this way, we share. But remember what we are sharing. We are sharing that expanded state of consciousness which is facilitating the process. Like if you meditate in a group, it will be a better meditation than if you meditate by yourself.
Yes, absolutely.
That kind of thing that quantum physics explains, as I said, is non-locality. And it is that kind of expansive mode which makes education transformative and overall, even conceptualization much easier to achieve.
Mm.
State is much better to have than a contracted state.
Right. No, I understand. Tell me, Dr. Goswami, how do we? So I have two questions for you, actually. The first question is about your school and what are the different kind of topics and what are the things that you teach as part of the Quantum University? And yeah, okay, so go ahead, answer that.
Okay. So we right now have a very simple goal. Right now, our immediate goal is to put a whole bunch of transformed people on our planet so that they can begin transformative work in three different fields. The fields are health, business and economics, and psychology, happiness. So we call it quantum science in health, prosperity, and happiness.
Okay.
We get masters and PhD. Masters take 2 years, and then PhD another 3.
Right.
And as I said, at the end, you get the master's first 2 years and then PhD 5 years. And what is the scope of it? So what you have done is that you have gotten yourself a transformative education in the what is the essence of healing.
Okay.
Today, we have very sophisticated allopathic medicine systems, which people take years to learn, and then they get to practice after passing license exams and all that. We are not saying that we eliminate all that. No.
Right.
That is necessary training for allopathy. But we also have alternative medicine systems, which
Right.
are common in India, but not part of the same regimen.
Mhm.
What quantum science does is gives us one integrative healing science under one umbrella, because now everything can be included, not only the science of matter, which gives us allopathic medicine, but also science of the vital energies, which is about living. Very easy way to understand it. We have, as a human being, both hardware and software.
Mm.
This is the difference with a rock. A rock has hardware, but
Right.
no software,
Correct.
living software.
Right.
This living software is also a kind of a body. The ancients knew well. They called it pranamaya kosha.
Okay.
The body is annamaya kosha, body made of food, anna, but there is prana. What is prana? Prana is the energy of the movement of the software, this vital software that gives us vitality.
Mm.
Movement of prana is what makes us alive.
Right.
If you know how to make pranic flow unretarded and smooth and creative, then this is very good for health.
Mm.
This is completely ignored in the allopathic tradition.
Mm.
Ayurveda includes it, but Ayurveda has become also full of misunderstanding and the teachings are not all that good. So this is where our degree will teach people once again the basic scientific principles behind Ayurveda, behind homeopathy, behind traditional Chinese medicine, integrate the two, plus also allows us to study the medicine theory behind chronic diseases, like we have explanations of cancer, which
Right.
normal science cannot give us.
Right.
Explanation of cancer comes from energy blockage in what we call the heart chakra.
Mm.
Now, Indians should have no difficulty in understanding it, because heart is where we feel love. And also, cancer has something to do with suppression of love. We know that sort of implicitly into it. And we now have a science behind, we have discovered the science behind it. We have discovered how the blockage occurs and how to unblock.
Right.
How to do the creative work that will unblock the energies in the heart chakra.
Right.
How to change the mental construction that you have given to block the energy.
Right.
So all these methods of quantum healing, it's now known. We teach the theory, we also teach the practices so that the person can now uh, convey that to the patient and do the practices with the patient and produce real healing of all our bodies, not just the physical like allopathic, or not just the vital like Ayurvedic medicine, both physical, vital, mental, even the spiritual.
Right. Yes. So, how many students do you have who are learning this?
Well, right now we have 34, I think.
Mm.
One student is sort of on leave, but he will join again in
And
uh,
how many teachers?
five.
Okay, that's
I am
one.
main teacher and I work with four others. A Romanian doctor, Valentina Onisar, is my biggest helper, but there's also an engineer, Anil Sinha.
Mhm.
Then there's a great medical surgeon,
Mm.
Gautam Lodaya.
What's
Uh,
the name? Sorry.
Gautam Lodaya.
Okay. Mm.
He's from Karnataka.
Okay.
And we have also Atish Majumdar. He's
Mm.
from Goa.
Okay.
Five of us, and we have plans for growth in the
Mm.
future. Right now, we don't need anyone else, but we are adding another American in the faculty next year.
Uh-huh.
It's international student body, international faculty, and we are not going to be shy about expansion. So our plan is to accommodate many more students as time goes.
That's quite exciting. My second question to you was that I want to know how can we integrate these teachings into mainstream education?
This is going to be a challenge. This is why we have chosen very carefully the three major ingredients of what people essentially need and must have. Can you imagine a person happy without having good health? So, health as well being is extremely important for happiness. Similarly, if a person cannot have security of some money, it is very hard to go for higher needs like love.
Yeah,
It is almost impossible.
absolutely.
So we have to recognize that this is what the ancient teachings mostly ignored. They sort of assume that people are so much interested to give up their ignorance, and education is removing ignorance in their eye, which is still in our eye too. Education is transformation means removing ignorance. But we want to remove ignorance without forgetting our basic needs. We do
Right.
need survival, and that's what the ego is for. So we never give up the ego, we strengthen the ego instead. Our students have better ability to survive so that they can move on to higher needs.
Right.
How? Because ordinary people, when they say they're healthy at a minimum level. There are other better ways to feel positive health. So a sense of well-being, where you will never have such deterioration as gives people dementia when they get old.
Right.
Now, this is the goal of the education. Education teaches you not only how to think, but also how to live properly.
Right.
Live with health, live with prosperity, live with happiness.
Yes.
Happiness, so psychology converts into a science of happiness, business and economics converts into a science of prosperity, and medicine becomes science of well-being.
Right. But do you see this integrating into the mainstream?
Yes, so when mainstream understand this,
Hmm.
now understand this is why we chose these three areas very carefully.
Yeah.
Mainstream is not so resistant as far as health and healing are concerned. The
Mhm.
healing profession is much more soft because they know that ultimately we want to heal.
Right.
And I suspect that we are not doing a very good job of healing with allopathy because it only takes care of the physical, and that's a very myopic kind of approach.
Right.
Now, of course, we have a very elaborate approach, taking care of vital, taking care of mental, and no tradition right now, not Ayurveda, not mind-body medicine practitioners, nobody does that. We are the first one to develop an integrative healing procedure that works. We
Right.
understand the process, so there is now a theory of medicine, not just empirical data.
Right.
So medicine is changing, and as soon as the mainstream practitioners become aware that there is a science of medicine, it's impossible to ignore it. I
Right.
mean,
Yeah.
people are interested in healing, and so the healers are too. Their parochial interest will give way to their ultimate interest, which is to heal people,
Right.
which make it better. And don't forget the other thing. I mean, even in India, the healthcare cost is now a huge issue. Health
Yeah.
is becoming very costly even in this country. And of course, in the West, it's outrageous.
Yeah.
Outrageous.
Yes, absolutely.
One whole month's salary just for one day stay in the hospital.
Yeah.
So the expense of it, just sheer expense of it, is bringing down the medical profession to make changes.
Right.
No doubt that that area will change. Psychology is already changing. The
Yes.
certain therapists, behavior cognitive or psychoanalysis, they're not the only popular therapy anymore. People go more and more to transpersonal therapies, depth psychological understanding, Jungian therapies, also spiritual therapies. And we have here a scientific therapy, which is completely integrative. All these procedures are included in this. Whatever one is appropriate, we are teaching our people to do that.
Right.
It is really a training after training. We encourage professionals to come to us, people with a medical degree, people with a psychology degree, people with a business degree or economics degree, and then we teach them, okay, look, what you have learned is some intellectual stuff.
Yeah.
Now, how to live it, how to work this stuff with a much more integrative framework,
Right.
how to serve people in an expanded consciousness so you can do your job better. If
Right.
you're a healer, your healing will get better. If you are a businessman, your business will get better, more efficient, more loving, more useful to the people. And of course, if you are into psychology and therapy, then you will not only be able to take care of their negative problems, namely the neurosis and suffering, but
Yeah.
you'll be able to lift them to happiness.
Yeah.
And
Which.
then it will go into the mainstream because, transpersonal psychology is already being taught in
Oh
some
yeah.
universities worldwide. And India and Brazil are very good places for us to spread these new ideas because the mind of the professionals in India and Brazil are developing countries. And it's a very upswing
Mhm.
mind,
Mhm.
very, very enthusiastic mind. We
Yeah.
want to apply new ideas and go quickly into areas where the Westerners are still
Yeah.
very and very conservative. And also, don't forget, countries like America is now enormously saddled by the polarization of the society.
Mhm.
Whereas in India or Brazil, these polarizations are there, but not as
Strong.
destructive, as strong.
Yeah.
So this helps a lot. So we not only focus on America, but we focus on Brazil, focus on India, focus on Europe, especially Southern Europe and Eastern Europe.
Mm.
And this is where our students are from.
Right. Right.
Students from Brazil, almost half of our student body. We have students of India, of course, and then we have students from Mexico, America, but also from countries like Romania. We have Italy. We have students from Portugal. We have students from Holland, uh, Spain, Portugal. I already have said. So all together, I counted once. It's 12 countries that are represented in our student body.
Yeah. Well, if we have to become one, then it has to be one world.
Yes.
So
Well,
yeah, I mean, I think it's safe to assume that this is going to be the place where science and spirituality meet. On the ground of quantum physics, yeah.
You said it very well. And our strength, basic strength, that's how I started.
Mm.
When my first book came out, it's called Self-Aware Universe. The most enthusiastic reception I got was from spiritual teachers.
Right.
They said, what a gift. Now we have science behind what we do.
Correct. Yes.
This very welcome because, there is no need to have these battles that is being fought in America between science and religion. Christianity, as it is practiced in popular version, has forgotten some of the wisdom teaching of Jesus. Similarly, Hinduism, when it becomes too identified with the militant part of Hinduism, they forget some of the Vedantic teachings.
Mm-hmm.
And this makes religion somewhat closed-minded. But ultimately, at least in India, the idea is very common that it is a universal way of life. Sanatana Dharma. This is the way Indians look at it.
Right.
Sanatana means eternal, and Dharma is a way of life.
Yeah.
And this is what it should be.
Yeah.
And this is what we are reviving with quantum education, quantum thinking.
Right. Right.
And this appeals to people. Science and spirituality, then professionals, scientists, they're not so threatened anymore because they know in their heart that spirituality cannot be ignored. In fact, the biggest failure of modern science based on materialism, only
Right.
matter, is that they have excluded the spirit. And this is, of course, the reason that there is so much feud between religions and science, because religions are threatened that science is trying to destroy them, whereas quantum science completely embraces religion and spirituality. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
as these things are becoming well known, and they are, believe me, this
Yeah.
university is helping us greatly in terms of publicizing that, look, we
Yeah.
are so well developed now that we can teach our students, we can teach them how to make better living at what they're already good at. And if they're not good at it yet, they can learn from us also
Yeah.
and then venture into business in a new way, becoming a healer in a new way, becoming a therapist in a new way, and just help people to manage their lives in a new way. And all these are wonderful contribution to the world, which badly needs these things.
Yes. Yes, completely. The world badly needs it. How would you relate the quantum theory? How can we use it to help heal the pandemic right now?
Say it again, please.
How can we use this theory and this knowledge of healing and the science of spirituality to heal the pandemic right now, the COVID?
This is a very, very good question. I'm glad you asked it.
Yeah.
In fact, we are in the process of publishing the first paper in a journal that we are beginning, Journal of Quantum Science of Consciousness. And this is on the treating coronavirus.
Ah, okay.
So very briefly, coronavirus is it's a virus. It's a virus which is basically a protein covering over a single strand of either RNA or DNA.
Right.
And so it cannot reproduce by itself. It needs a host. And this is when they start reproducing and very quickly multiplying and creating havoc with the host body. Now, the regular science literature only talks about the molecular part of the virus. But really, virus is more than a molecule. As soon as find the host, it acquires a vital body. But it didn't have it. Where is the vital energies of this virus coming from? It's borrowing from the body of the host. And so what we found is that indeed, one of the symptoms is that the host does not feel anymore that much of vitality. Vitality overall decreases. And this, of course, becomes a symptom much later on, but one symptom is common. Unbeknownst to the host, people become, their blood become deoxygenated. It does not have as much oxygen that the blood needs.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a direct contribution of the attack the virus makes on the vital body that people have. This the allopathic doctors don't talk about.
Right.
When we treat it with our techniques and methods, we concentrate on pranayama, mudras. These are parts of Ayurvedic treatment, which Dr. Gautam Lodaya has developed. In fact, he has the equipment and he did actually took on some patients. Now, government regulation is that only government hospitals are doing it. But he has a hospital, he runs a hospital, and he actually healed some patients with these advanced Ayurvedic techniques, which combine quantum science wisdom with Ayurveda.
Mm.
We use techniques of rejuvenating the vital. It's
Mm.
done in many ways. For example, you know very well, like turmeric. Turmeric is an everyday spice in India. We
Mm.
only have it as a yellow powder, which
Right.
adds taste to food. It
Mm.
does.
Mhm.
But very few people know that it also has vital energies
Mhm.
prana, to give to us, which strengthens the immune system.
Correct. Yeah.
You have picked up enough newspaper articles, and everybody knows that the virus actually is defended only by the immune system. That's our defense system.
Right.
And if the immune system is weak, then we are done for.
Yeah.
When does the virus get a very huge hold on the patient, so much so that the patient dies? You know,
Yeah.
death only in about 5-6% of cases.
Right.
But who are the ones that die? We found beautiful correlations of this. Like males die much more than women,
Uh-huh.
are 50% less in terms of infection and death. Why
Mhm.
is that? Because women's immune system, they're more loving, their heart is open, and
Mm.
their immune system is strong.
Right.
So, and when is the immune system boosted the most? You have to do these practices. If you do pranayama practice, after that, immune system is strong. So
Mm.
we encourage people to do pranayama even after they have the disease. And if you do it beforehand, you'll never have the disease because the virus has to find you as a host. And
Mm.
in through the mucous membrane, which we have in the nose, which we have in the eyes, which we have in the mouth, those are the vehicles of entry. But if you keep them fresh by using again simple techniques, like did you know that if you just simply gargle with salt water or just steam your mouth regularly
Mhm.
times in the day, just drink hot water instead of cold water all the time, because it is summer indeed, cold water is wonderful, but
Mhm.
also drink hot water. Tea is very good.
Mhm.
And tea with a little bit of ginger,
Mhm.
booster of the immune system. These are very, very good things.
Mhm.
And the other thing we advise people is, of course, the respiratory system. This is the problem also. This is also partly a heart chakra disease. It's also a throat chakra
Mhm.
disease. So we advise people that keep your lungs strong, and the way to do it is, you will laugh at this, but I always do. But you know, there is a very effective practice for boosting your functioning of the lungs.
Mhm.
To sing in the shower. Why shower? Because in the shower you sound better, otherwise you'll be bashful. But in the shower, the tiles produce a phenomenon called reverberation, and that boosts the music, and anyone can sing good, powerfully. And so this expression keeps the throat chakra energy alive and very flowing, very balanced, creative, and that boosts the lungs as well. So they're just simple ways that we are bringing in,
Right.
like these potions made of not only green tea, but also this additional stuff like turmeric and
Right. All of
clove.
that. Singing in the shower.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes, and these simple things that people can do.
Right. Right. Simple things. Yeah.
And,
So, Dr. Goswami, let's give the audience a chance now, and let's take some questions from everyone.
absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Is there a book on quantum physics in Hindi?
Um, There must be, except I'm not aware of it. We are very conscious about publishing in Hindi. So
Okay.
we are determined, in fact. So within the next year or two, we absolutely, I promise, I give you my personal promise. We already will have some of our courses. We give video courses on the internet and
Mhm.
will already be translated. We are arranging it right now, in fact. And so Hindi translation, yes, and definite yes. We'll make it so.
That's good news, Dr. Goswami. Okay, there is a one question. You have life in the physical body in the world of duality, and the other hand is a quest for self realization in the state of non duality. How do you strike a balance? And that's your life's work, but I'll let Dr. Goswami answer that.
Yes. The balance is very important, but the balance between what and what, this is the important thing. First of all, there is balance between all the different bodies.
Right.
That they have different needs.
Hmm.
Every body has its own balance. Even the physical body needs
Mm-hmm.
a certain balance. Look at what we do, what good health requires. We need nutrition. That's the replacement of some of the cells die, and so we have new nutrients to so that the food helps the cells to grow by division. That part is easy. But the other part, we don't think of it that way. We think of exercise as a sort of thing for the muscles to do and stuff, and many people don't even bother.
Mm-hmm.
Exercise is actually a creative part of taking care of the physical body.
Mm-hmm.
We do need similarly for all the bodies, not only what the Chinese have beautiful words for it. They call the conditioning energy yang, and the potentialities in creative
Mm-hmm.
potentialities into
Right.
everything. So this yin yang balance, balance between creativity and conditioning. In prana language, we also have that. The conditioned part is called ojas, and the energetic part is called tejas,
Right.
creative part.
Right.
We have to have balance between them.
Yeah.
So this balancing is extremely important for the mental as well. That's when we talk about both creativity and conditioning. So the ideas are known, but proper health, we need that. And also, this is part of the enlightened living.
Mm-hmm.
Enlightenment does not mean that we live in non-duality all the time.
Right.
We are proposing that a different kind of enlightenment where we sacrifice the non-duality part of the time and look at that's how our ancient teachers taught.
Yeah.
Rabbi never sat in the cave all the time.
Right.
Gave regular darshan to people. Hours he spent with his disciples
Right.
and the public. He would spend a couple of hours every day.
Right.
So this is what all of our teachers did. Krishnamurti did, Ananda Mohima did, and still whosoever are in the teacher's role, they know this.
Right.
You have to serve the world as well. You cannot just stay in the God consciousness all the time.
Right.
So when you serve the world, again, you are using that balance. So this balance, balanced way of enlightenment, we call quantum enlightenment.
Mm.
You go for the wholeness, Purnam, but you don't go for unity, union with God or oneness, non-duality all the time.
Mm.
Non-duality all the time is a very old-fashioned idea, and I don't think anybody actually did that.
Yeah.
People talked about it, but really it makes sense only after you die. United with God all the time before you die.
Mm.
So it's a good idea to have quantum enlightenment instead. This is the one that Krishna taught in the Bhagavad Gita. This is the one that Patanjali taught. This philosophy is sometimes called Sankhya, qualified non-dualism, but that's okay. What's in a name? It's really very compatible with Vedanta. There is no quarrel between them. Don't get into philosophical subtleties. That's not important. The important thing is to realize that one cannot live in non-duality all the time in a practical way. Yeah, some of the time is fine, creativity and falling into that expansion and in a state of samadhi is good. But you can only do part of the time, and then part of the time you contribute to the world, serve the world.
Right, right.
So beautiful lines of Rabindranath Tagore comes to my mind, which is that is beautiful. I slept and dreamt that life was joy. I woke and found that life was service. I served and discovered that service was joy. So when you find that service is joy, karma yoga, as Bhagavad Gita teaches it, as quantum physics teaches you now, quantum science of health, prosperity, and happiness is to discover joy in being a doctor, joy in being a businessman, joy in being a businesswoman, and joy in being a psychotherapist.
Right. Oh, absolutely. I agree. Couldn't agree more. How can you go about studying quantum physics? Some easy resources can you recommend to begin with for someone who is not a science student?
Actually, it works better for non-scientists. It's surprising, but really, the essence of quantum physics, this consciousness part, revealed in not quite in the mathematics. The mathematics really are mathematics of working with waves. And the mathematics gives us only answers to technological problems. Like if you want to work on nanophysics and how you're going to use quantum physics for building powerful computer communication, then of course you need to learn.
Right.
But for learning how to keep your patient into well-being, you don't really need to learn that. You need to learn the essence of it. You need to learn how quantum physics can be applied to how we think and how we feel. The energies of feeling, vital energies, this quantum energy, purely quantum energies, that is not material, purely quantum movement of the software. How can we understand that with quantum physics? We can use the same language, we can use the same pictures, but it's just picture. There's no mathematics behind it that we can discern, because that's the difference between hardware science and software science. Hardware science is deterministic. Software science is qualitative. So we cannot have mathematics for qualitative stuff. Mathematics does not allow the ideas of creativity very much. I mean, it's very subtle. So if you have to include both conditioning and creativity, the system better be very open. And that openness is what makes it non-mathematical and makes it easy to understand. The same principles, the same language, but no mathematics.
Correct. Correct. She's asked if you can recommend some easy resources to start with. So anything that we can just start with.
Yeah, I wrote a book called Everything Answer Book. This book
What's it called? Repeat.
Everything Answer Book.
Okay, Everything Answer Book. Okay.
You know about the Indian proverb. The biggest knowledge is that knowing which we can answer everything. And of course, the ancient people taught that knowledge of Brahman is that knowledge. And when we discovered that quantum physics gives us the knowledge of Brahman in a scientific way, and there is much more detail of how to gain that knowledge can be given, can be codified and taught, then I thought of writing a book which would say that now we have the know-how of giving answers to every living problem. Problem of living human beings. And that's the books. It is written in a very popular style. This is why I recommend it. And also because it's available in Indian edition, so it's cheap.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Doctor. Okay. Let's answer this one. Lustful thoughts bring me from expanded state to contracted state. This happens every 3-4 days and I lose my energy. How do I avoid lowering my emotions and thoughts?
Okay, so the first thing you do, this emotion is this coming from a female or a male?
It was an anonymous attendee, but yeah, so I don't know.
Okay, the male, it's a deeper problem than if it is a woman. But you know, suppression of emotion is a very tricky thing to do. Everybody has to suppress to some extent.
Right.
We live in a society, we have a job, and you know, people don't like us to be emotive doing a job.
Right.
We have to suppress, but do not suppress unnecessarily. Now, Indian societies, this is one of the powers of Indian joint families. Unfortunately, Indians are losing the power of joint families now for a variety of reasons. No need to discuss that. So there's no sense in talking about too much of that. But it is a fact still, that in Indian culture, it's okay for a friend to visit a friend without making an appointment.
Mm-hmm.
And that okayness that we have about each other, about friends and family, is a very good thing because that gives us a way of having a whole bunch of therapists in my company.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone can be a therapist if they allow you to. And
Mm-hmm.
this is just an openness of the society.
Mm-hmm.
Why shouldn't we? If that is what intimacy is about. You share
Mm-hmm.
emotions with each other.
Mm-hmm.
A suppression dynamic that Westerners practice for more efficiency in their work should stop when you come home.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, understood. It is efficient. But when you are with family, when you are with your lover, when you are with your friends, why should we suppress our emotions? We should be emotive. And of course, if we start expressing and then additionally boost it up with meditating,
Mm-hmm.
what happens is that after a while you realize that, but I don't have to always express emotions. I can express it part way. I can express it that I'm feeling it, I'm thinking it, but I'm not expressing it aloud. I'm not allowing it to intervene in the relationship. I can just look at it. I can meditate on it. So this is why we teach awareness meditation. Become aware that before we express a thought, before we express an emotion, which is thought and feeling, we have time. It's
Mm-hmm.
about half a second of processing time. And if we meditate, we can stop our brain, we
Mm-hmm.
can stop our body from expressing
Mm-hmm.
strong emotion that will upset my relationship. Instead, we can just meditate on it and stop.
Right.
What we teach how to meditate and gain more management of your emotions. This
Right.
is emotional intelligence. It's a part of the curriculum to teach emotional intelligence.
Correct. Yes. Um, what is a good tip to remain in a state of awareness all the time?
Well, we cannot be, brain won't allow you to be in a state of, but if we develop a meditative life and if we develop a creative interest in things. So, you know, we talked about transformation, but what we transform with, I mentioned things like love, goodness, justice, those things have a formal name. We call them archetypes.
Mm-hmm.
In the Indian tradition, they're part of the Vijnanamaya kosha. They're part of the word Vijnana. You know, in India, science was the science of the archetypes.
Mm-hmm.
Vijnana, which means translated as science, good, but the science was not like science of matter as it is today. Science was then recognized as science of the archetypes. Science that takes me towards consciousness, higher consciousness. Vijnanamaya kosha. This long teachings that Analanda and Takshila had.
Mm-hmm.
We can bring that back and then science changes into these archetypes. And if we explore these archetypes, then these things all become part of the work towards keeping the consciousness expanded. But we never dream of expansion all the time because the brain cannot allow it. Brain needs sleeping, brain needs some contraction time, Brain needs some neutral time, and rest of the time, brain can be expanded.
Yeah.
So we teach a do-be style of living. Do and be both. Be is the expanded consciousness, and do, we have to engage some doing. And those doing times, we often focus, and then the expansion is gone, and that's okay. That's okay. But you know what? There are states, very high states of happiness. We call it flow states. In
What do you
those
call it?
flow,
Flow.
like flow of a river, your movements, your experiences become seamless, no boundaries. You go between expansion and contraction without any effort, without seeming to have any boundary between them.
Mm-hmm.
One can get that state, and that state is very much like you are not experiencing the contraction anymore. Yes, the ego is still there and it is very much active because you are doing things too, and that's supposed to have you contracted, but it is so seamless, contraction and expansion just so automatically in a flow condition that it all becomes like a flow of the river.
Mm-hmm.
It does things by itself, and
Mm-hmm.
there you are not the doer anymore.
Mm-hmm.
This is the
That's
karma karma that Krishna talked about in the Bhagavad Gita.
right.
It becomes like that when we become so tuned to our service that love flows from it.
Mm.
That flow, in that state, there is just hardly any contraction that is experienced.
Mm.
And can we stay in that state all the time? Now, we have people, Mahatma Gandhi, Rabindranath Tagore, Sri Aurobindo, uh, Arundhati Mao, when she taught, she spent a lot of time also in that non-dual state.
Mm-hmm.
She's kind of exception. Ramana is also kind of exception, a lot of time in non-dual state. But the other enlightened people of recent times, like Krishnamurti, they spent a lot of time in this flow state.
Mm.
And this is what people can achieve. This is achievable.
Mm. Right. This flow is achievable.
Yes.
Yes. So somebody's asking, how does quantum physics explain the state of samadhi? So I think this question kind of flows in with what you were saying,
State of awareness.
State of samadhi.
Oh, samadhi.
Hmm.
Okay. Now, samadhi, it is an equal footing between subject and object. Look at the ego condition in the ordinary state of consciousness. Objects dominate. Even the I that we experience if we are a little relaxed is gone. It's now all me. I'm transactional.
Mm-hmm.
Including myself, which has become part of the transaction. What is in it for me? Very contracted, right? So from that kind of state, if I am now coming out and expanding, so then that's when we are getting into a expansion where the ego will still be there, but the quantum self, the expansion, will play a stronger and stronger role. So how to bring that about? This is what that do when we do the engage the ego and be. So if this do becomes in a kind of a natural flow,
Mm-hmm.
that's really what we are aiming for.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
And I can teach this meditation, this flow meditation. I encourage it, but this is an advanced meditation practice.
Mm-hmm.
But indeed, if you, what I propose is that first you do we are going to do a meditation after this, right?
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Oh,
I'll teach people how to get into this
okay. Yeah.
specifically, but at least the awareness of this expansion.
Sure. Okay.
That is fairly easy to practice, and everybody can practice it after you
Yes.
practice for a
So
while.
that's exciting. So let's do that.
Okay, we have time, about 12 minutes it takes.
Yeah. Whoever's there can do it. I mean, whoever has the time, let's do it.
Okay,
Yeah.
very good. So before any meditation, do a little bit of body awareness. So the way to do it is close your eyes, sit comfortably, close your eyes, breathe in, and as you breathe in, inhale, you contract your muscles. Squeeze, 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 squeeze all over the body, including your head, torso, limbs, everything is squeezed. Okay, now exhale. Release. Do it one more time. Inhale, squeeze, 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 exhale. Okay. This is who you are in the ordinary state of consciousness. Your eyes are still closed. You are breathing even. No constriction on whatever is taking place. Just watch your thoughts. Look at thoughts as objects like clouds in the sky. The sky is now your mind sky. Eyes are closed. Your internal awareness, field of awareness that you are experiencing. In that field, occasionally, these clouds are coming. These are the thoughts. Just watch them and relax. Don't get attached to any particular thought. It can be very interesting, but let it go. As soon as you become aware, let it go. This simple practice will do just for 2 minutes. I will keep track of the time. I'll tell you when to move on to the next stage. Don't worry. 2 minutes. Okay, don't open your eyes. Just listen to the instruction. We are going into the next phase. So far, you have been only watching your thoughts as they go by. You're concentrating more on the object. Now, somebody asked a question about samadhi. Samadhi means subject and object on equal footing. So in preparation for samadhi, what we do is we start paying attention to subject as well. Now let's see how far we can go. So we were watching your thoughts, right? I was watching mine, you were watching yours. And now let's watch the watcher. Right? Can we do that? Become a witness to yourself watching the thoughts. This is called awareness meditation. Awareness of these two poles, the experiencer and the experienced, you and your thought. You are now a witness to the entire field of awareness. Okay. This is the preparation for that state of samadhi where the experiences will be equally shared between objects and subject. That's when subject and object feels like oneness. But this is preparation for it. Let's see how much attention you can keep on both poles. You watching your thoughts. Excuse me. Another 2 minutes. Please start. Okay, let's jump to the next phase. Make one more degree of difficulty. Try. This is the best way of practicing it. Try. Try to see if you can keep attention to the witness. Just be aware of the witness. You watch the witness. Before, you were the witness and you are witnessing the awareness field, subject watching the object. Now your task is go even behind the witness and see if you can watch the witness watching the field of awareness of you watching the thoughts. Try. If you succeed in that one, then try to go even beyond. See if you can see the watcher of the witness. Don't give up. Keep on trying. This is something very tough sounding, and it is kind of difficult to achieve, but try. Trying doesn't hurt, and in fact, see what happens. Be curious. Can I do it? That's the spirit. Again, just 2 minutes. It's a bit frustrating, isn't it? Okay, enough with frustration. Just relax. Now, in the last phase, we just sit. We just sit. Wherever we are, we just sit with as much awareness as we have. If we can watch the witness, fine. If we can go watch the witness to the witness, fine. But wherever we are, we don't worry about it. Wherever the energy takes us, wherever the spirit moves us, that's the spirit of this part of the meditation. Again, 2 to 3 minutes. I'll call the time. Start. Okay. Open your eyes very slowly, please. How does it feel?
Feels great.
We become relaxed.
Very rejuvenating.
So all that struggle was worth it.
Yeah, it was worth it.
This
That
is,
was absolutely wonderful. I think our audience must have enjoyed that so much.
thank you so much. Let me give you the audience the website.
Yeah.
To contact me, I'll be very happy to hear
Yes.
you.
Yes. For all those, I know we had many questions which we couldn't answer, but his email is already put on the chat. It's
The,
info@amitgoswami.co.in. Yes.
I also have a website in India now.
Mm-hmm.
It's amitgoswami.co.in.
Okay. Yeah. So the website of the same email ID, which is amitgoswami.co.in, www.amitgoswami.co.in, and connect with him on info@amitgoswami.co.in. It is in the chat. Of course, you can always email Thrive if you lose it, and we will be happy to connect you with Dr. Goswami. I can't thank you enough for your time, for your words of wisdom, always so connected to the quantum and yet so practical. It just, you bring the theory to reality, and that's what it's always amazing to talk to you, Doctor.
Thank you, Pinky. It's been
Uh,
wonderful with you and all the audience.
yes. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you, Doctor.